Hi guys, it's me, KazarHD, and welcome today to the 2021 Portuguese race watch-along, of course, from Portimao, where we're heading into a race that, after qualifying, might not be as exciting and thrilling as the last Grand Prix in Imola was, but definitely still, battles all across the field will be taking place for the race win, of course, between Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen, and then, of course, the midfield between Ferrari, McLaren, AlphaTauri, Alpine, and I'm sure Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin as well. The battles today are still going to be very intriguing, and I think we are still in for, at the very least, an interesting Grand Prix here in Portugal. Hopefully you guys are doing well on this Sunday afternoon, a nice sunny Sunday afternoon here in my part of the UK. And yeah, hopefully with me and Nib, you will watch along with us the session, the race, of course, today. If you can't, though, watch the Grand Prix, but you want to listen to us as commentary so you can keep up to date with what's going on, then no problem at all. Also, just want to say, guys, that I'm not feeling, I think I kind of said this last night, I'm not feeling physically too great. Bit of a headache at the minute, so please do bear with me today if I do have any problems over the next couple of hours, but I should be fine because I'm feeling a lot better than I was last night after I finished the stream. But yeah, hopefully you guys are doing well. And yeah, just less than half an hour until lights out in Portugal. But if you guys don't know what the starting grid is for this Grand Prix, let me get into the qualifying results from yesterday. So Valtteri Bottas will start on pole position, from Lewis Hamilton in second, Max Verstappen third, Sergio Perez fourth, Carlos Sainz fifth, and then the rest of the top 10 is Esteban Ocon, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, and Sebastian Vettel. And then from P11 to P20, you've got Russell, Giovinazzi, Alonso, Tsunoda, Raikkonen, Ricciardo, Stroll, Latifi, Schumacher, and Mazepin. That is your starting grid, and there are no grid penalties, thankfully, for this Grand Prix at the minute, and there's no problems on the grid so far for any of the teams. So that is, at the minute, the starting grid for this Grand Prix. But now let's get into quickly previewing some of the teams today. So Mercedes, of course, great result yesterday in qualifying, locking out the front row, their first front row lockout since the Sakir Grand Prix of 2020, which was the penultimate race of 2020, of course, when they had Russell in the car instead of Lewis Hamilton. And they're definitely looking quite a bit stronger than they were at Imola and Bahrain. They haven't got a dominant gap over Red Bull. It's probably a tenth or two at most, but they're definitely looking stronger. And if you look at the race pace Mercedes have had in the first couple Grand Prix, you'd have to say Mercedes are favourites. Red Bull can definitely still win this race, but as long as things go smoothly at the start, I think Red Bull and Verstappen have a very tough job on their hands to try and win this Grand Prix. For Max Verstappen, if he's going to win today, it's really going to come down to start line heroics yet again, which of course he showed at Imola, where he went from third there up to first by the first real corner of the circuit, the Tamburello chicane, or the entry to the Tamburello chicane. So yeah, for Red Bull, in terms of the race win, really do need to strike at the start. If they don't, again, it's going to be a very tough ask to get the victory. We'll see what Sergio Perez can do as well in this race, because his pace is actually pretty good so far this weekend. But I'll bring in Nib now. And Nib, so after qualifying yesterday, what do you think will be, say, the factors behind, this battle? Do you think Mercedes looking out the front row, like I said, if they can maintain that 1-2 by the end of the first lap, do you think it will be very tough for Red Bull today to overhaul that?
I mean, I wouldn't say so. And hello, thanks. Hope everyone is doing well. I mean, we saw last season that this track was pretty easy to overtake at, and I think it had the most on-track passes of any race we had last season. So I don't think track position is a massive thing here. If they can stay with it or get within a second, I do think it's quite possible for there to be some overtaking. But of course, I think the strategy is going to be absolutely massive today. Christian Horner, just in his interview on Sky Sports a tiny bit earlier, was saying that there's pretty much strategy A through to Z for today. But very curiously, is that Red Bull have no soft tyres left for the race, but Mercedes have no hard tyres whatsoever for the race. So the strategy between the two top teams is going to be very, very interesting indeed, and it should lend us towards having a very good race.
Yeah, hopefully it does. Like you say, if you look at last year's Grand Prix, it was ridiculously easy to overtake on that main pit straight. So, yeah, I think Verstappen, like I said last night, if he can get within a second of one of the Mercedes cars, definitely should be able to have a go, because not only can you definitely overtake here, but secondly, he does have in the Honda power unit something that can give him enough power to get past. It's not the Honda power unit of 2 or 3 years ago. It's probably the strongest power unit out there, just about, from the Mercedes at the minute. So, yeah, hopefully Verstappen can keep up with them, but again, I think the start will be very important, and not just the first corner at the start of the Grand Prix, but into turn 2, turn 3, 4, and 5, because it just goes on and on where you can go side by side through so many corners. So even if Max Verstappen isn't ahead of one of the Mercedes cars by turn 1, he can still get ahead on the first lap at some other corners, as we saw again at last year's Grand Prix. But now let's get into the midfield. So McLaren, Lando Norris looking good, Daniel Ricciardo not so much, but I think McLaren will be happy with Lando Norris's position, and McLaren, I think, with Norris, should have a decent race, say 6th or 7th. I think they'll be finishing in the Grand Prix. Ricciardo, though, of course, started down in 16th. Going to be very hard for him to get a good finish, a good result, but I still think he can nick a couple points today, because overtaking definitely possible here in Portugal. Nib, for Ricciardo, of course you were and you still are very disappointed with his starting position, but because of the Mercedes power unit and the McLaren race pace, it's not all hope is lost, is it?
No, absolutely not. Friday was really, really good for Ricciardo. He looked probably the best he has all season so far in the McLaren on Friday, but then yesterday was just an absolute disaster. So, yeah, I still think there's plenty of hope for the race, and him starting on the medium tyres, even though he's going to, you'd assume he's going to start on the medium tyres all the way down to 16th, is certainly going to be an advantage with the race strategy. And yeah, with it being quite easy to overtake here, I think he certainly should be able to try and fight for some points.
Yeah, I think definitely he'll be in there somewhere. Will still be tough because there are cars ahead that I also expect to make some progress today, such as Lance Stroll just behind him, Kimi Raikkonen just ahead of him. Also, you got Giovinazzi and Alonso outside the top 10, who I think can definitely do better in the race today. So he'll definitely be in the battle for sure today. And we'll just go through the rest of the midfield. So Ferrari, they're looking very strong. Carlos Sainz up in 5th. Great position for him. And if you look at how he was at last year's Grand Prix, as long as he suffers no big trouble on the first few laps, don't really see Carlos Sainz having a Grand Prix that goes down to be disappointing or poor, because Ferrari car looks probably the 3rd best car this weekend, and Carlos Sainz driving very well. And we've seen in the first couple of races even though Carlos Sainz had a qualifying result, rather, that wasn't that great, in the race was a lot stronger, and his pace was, just as good, if not a tad better at times, than his teammate, Charles Leclerc. So I think Carlos Sainz will be good today. Also, Charles Leclerc, as long as he doesn't lose too many positions, because of course he's starting on the medium compound tyre back in 8th place, so he will struggle in the first 3 or 4 laps for tyre warm-up, and of course the Ferrari is still not that quick in a straight line, so he will be a bit of a sitting duck, I think, for the first 2 or 3 laps. But once he gets his tyres fired up, he should be easily quick enough to finish up in 5th place with his teammate up there as well. So I think Ferrari overall, as long as they don't have any calamity with Leclerc, again, trying to warm up his tyres, Ferrari should be absolutely fine. And then we'll get into the rest. So Aston Martin, Sebastian Vettel, great lap by him yesterday to get into the top 10. I think Vettel can definitely battle hard for points today, but I think it will be tough because I think there are cars behind him who are looking pretty quick and could definitely dispose of his 10th place starting position in the Grand Prix. Lance Stroll down to 17th. Bit of a surprise still because Stroll normally so far this season has been the clear number one in terms of performance at Aston Martin, but I think Aston Martin, at best, they're going to nick probably a couple of points. For AlphaTauri, kind of the same. Gasly starting in 9th place, Tsunoda down in 14th. AlphaTauri not looking as great as they were the first couple races, which I think has more so to do with the track layout than it does the actual car. I think once we get to, say, Baku in a month's time, I think AlphaTauri will look a lot stronger around a track like that. But Gasly's still looking good in P9. I think Gasly's probably going to be around 8th, 9th. He could even surprise us and get up to 7th place. I don't think he'll be as quick as the Ferraris, though, because the AlphaTauri just doesn't look as quick as the Ferrari car. He did finish 5th here last year, so he definitely can surprise us, but I just don't think he has, maybe not him, but I don't think the car is necessarily that quick this weekend, and hopefully Yuki Tsunoda can continue his mistake-free weekend so far, and after what was not great qualifying, hopefully he can have a race which brings him a couple points. Alpine, though, have been the surprise of the weekend without doubt. In practice, they looked very quick with both cars, and Esteban Ocon, of course, qualifying in 6th place. What a drive by the Frenchman. Fernando Alonso down in 13th. Fernando, I know, could have done a lot better than that because he was right up there with Ocon before Q2. So I think Fernando can definitely do a lot better. And I think he's definitely one to watch because of the pace of the Alpine so far this weekend. I think Fernando definitely one to watch in this race. But, I mean, after the first couple of races, Nib, with Alpine, definitely quite a big shock that they've been so competitive here in Portugal.
Yeah, it certainly is. And last year, of course, when they were Renault, they really struggled at Portimao with the track surface and the low grip. So it seems like they've really learned their mistakes from last year and worked the tyre a lot better than what they did last year. And yeah, as you were saying, an absolutely tremendous performance by Esteban Ocon. It really was yesterday, and he's kind of making Fernando Alonso look a little bit silly in the last 2 races.
Yeah, he absolutely has. Alonso, I mean, Bahrain was probably the best he could do at that time, really, in the Alpine. I also will say we do need to remember that in terms of this weekend and Imola, that with Alonso, I mean, he hasn't raced around Imola since 2006, and with this track, he's never raced here before. So Fernando not exactly familiar with the track layout. I think definitely the next Grand Prix, of course, in his home country and a track that he knows very, 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 very well. I'm sure Fernando will be a lot stronger next weekend, but yeah, Ocon, great performance, just like he did in Imola, of course, qualifying up in, I think, 9th place he was in Imola, and then, of course, finished 9th in the race as well. But yeah, look out for Alpine, because when I did my race preview last night, I showed the sector times, overall sector times for qualifying, and Alpine were just as quick as Mercedes and Red Bull in the final sector. So, yeah, look out for them definitely in the midfield battle, because I don't think are just going to dramatically fall away, say like Alonso did in Bahrain. And then the final couple teams, Alfa Romeo, much better qualifying than they had at Imola. And I think this is definitely a day, because of the way the tyres are this weekend and how close it is still in that midfield pack. This is definitely a day where Alfa Romeo can score points. I mean, really, they should have scored points at the first 2 races. Raikkonen was only 2 or 3 seconds away from a point in Bahrain, and then really, I think, undeservedly lost points did Raikkonen at Imola for what was really a bullshit rule that came into effect for him to lose those points. So I think Alfa Romeo, they're also a team who, they're a very quiet team in terms of the pace they show. They're never dramatically quick or dramatically slow. But I think you definitely need to look out for them because they'll definitely be, hovering around 9th, 10th, 11th during the Grand Prix. And hopefully Kimi Raikkonen can have a great start like he had last year. And finally, Williams, George Russell up in P11. What a lap that was. And he was still disappointed with it because when he set that time, was shaking his head, I remember, right after he set that time. So Russell probably feels as though he could have got into the top 10, which, he was close enough. He was only half a tenth away from getting into the top 10. But still, P11, great result. Williams, I don't actually think are as quick this weekend as they were at Imola. So there's a chance of points, but I don't think it's as great as it was at Imola. And up until Russell's crash with Bottas, really, you'd have to say Russell, if he had not had that crash with Bottas, probably would have scored points because he was looking very quick and wasn't under any real serious threat, let's say, from the cars behind. But yeah, those are the midfield teams, and I think they're all going to be still pretty close in the field today. Yeah, Nib, what teams, in terms of, say, the battle for points, obviously, what teams do you think are going to be the strongest, say the top 3 or 4 teams from that midfield battle?
Well, it really all depends how the teams handle the wind, because I'm not too sure if you've seen, but it's still very, very, very blowy out there. So whoever handles the wind the best will probably be the strongest. But I think it has to be obviously Alpine and Ferrari. I think Leclerc's going to have a pretty good race. He's on the right tyre for the start. Obviously, at the first couple laps, he might struggle a little bit, but in that first stint, he'll be certainly pretty strong. So yeah, I think Alpine, obviously with Ocon, and then you'd have to say certainly Ferrari. But of course, Lando Norris in 7th will certainly be interesting to see what Lando can do, because we know that car is capable of a little bit more than 7th place.
Yeah, I agree. Now, before, and we've got about 12 minutes to go until the Grand Prix gets underway. So make sure, guys, as well, right now, in the live chat, to put in your predictions for the race today. Who, in your opinion, will win the Grand Prix, finish in 2nd, finish in 3rd, and give us, if you can, your top 5 for the Grand Prix today. So I'll go first with my predictions. So today, I think it'll be Hamilton winning the Grand Prix, with Verstappen 2nd, Bottas 3rd, Perez 4th, and 5th, I'm going to go Carlos Sainz. The reason, ahead of Leclerc, who I think will finish in 6th, is because I think Leclerc will get probably held up a bit too much in traffic, whilst, again, trying to fire up his tyres, and Carlos Sainz does have the advantage of track position. So I'm going to go for that as my top 5. Nib, what would you go for your top 5?
Oh, God, I hate having to predict before the race, you know this. Yeah, I think Hamilton probably wins the Grand Prix, followed by Verstappen in 2nd. I'm going to go Sergio Perez in 3rd. I think he's going to bounce back and have a really good race after what was, a pretty disappointing Imola Grand Prix. Then 4th will be Valtteri Bottas. Who will finish 5th? I mean, there could be about 7 drivers that could finish 5th. So, I don't know, let's just say Charles Leclerc will finish in P5. There's one driver.
I think Leclerc, yeah, I think he's definitely a strong candidate for that. And I think, really, if Leclerc doesn't suffer as badly on the first lap or few laps with his tyre warm-up, I think he is probably the favourite still to finish in 5th place. But I think he will struggle a bit because we've seen so far this weekend with how hard the tyres are. And, the cold-ish track temperature and the wind has been quite tough for the drivers and teams. So we have, about 10 minutes to go till the Grand Prix gets underway. So yeah, guys, let us know in the live chat Who do you think will win the Grand Prix, finishing second, third, fourth, and fifth? And I think I'll start reading out some predictions now. By the way, hello to everyone in the chat. Great to see you all here as always. So let me find the first few. So the Rudno says Bottas, Hamilton, Max, Norris, Ocon. John Hardy says Lewis, Max, Norris, Perez. He says boats, but I think he means Bottas. And then Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Perez, Ocon. Nathan says Verstappen, Bottas, Hamilton, Perez, Sainz. Eugene Kelly says Hamilton, Perez, Verstappen, Bottas, Vettel. Devo next says Bottas, Verstappen, Hamilton. Addiction says Max, Lewis, Lando. Bio Comet says Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, Perez, Lando. It just scrolled down a minute. Let me just try and get back to... so it's Cental, I think it is, says Max, Lewis, Perez, Bot, and Sainz. Let me see if there's any others. Theo God says Hamilton, Verstappen, Lando for his top three. John Patterson says Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, Norris, and Perez. Let me see if there's any others. There are some others down here. FC Man 101 says Schumacher, Mazepin, Latifi. Tony Dinker says Max, Carlos, Hamilton, Perez. Brabham says Lewis, Max, Bottas, Perez. Pez says there's Bottle, Verstappen, Hamilton. Let me see if there's any others here. Francisco, Max, Hamilton, Bottas. Greg Clune says Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Perez. By the way, we're not going to stream the race. I think the top of the description makes that pretty clear, and I don't really need to explain why. I want to just bring up one thing, though, because I noticed this in qualifying yesterday, and of course we saw this at Imola. Are you surprised, Nib, how quick Sergio Perez has been compared to Max Verstappen?
Not really. I mean, he's obviously put in quite a lot of work to be able to be as quick as what he is at the moment, and that Red Bull's quite easy to drive. So no, I'm not awfully surprised. I'm just happy to see that Red Bull have got a good second driver in that car. So
yeah.
No, I mean, full credit to Sergio Perez though. He's doing a fantastic job, and he's only going to get better.
Yeah, I think he will, and I think once he starts getting a couple podiums, I reckon he'll really kick on after that. I mean, of course, I am, I won't say a fan of Perez to the point where I am biased towards him, but I've always thought the guy has always been one of the most underrated on the grid, and even though I want him to do really well at Red Bull, I ultimately didn't think he would be that close to Verstappen, but of course, Imola out-qualified Max. The race was a different story, which I think wasn't helped by the weather, but still, in the wet weather, you still need to perform well, as we know. But, yeah, I think, really, if the Imola Grand Prix had been dry, I think Sergio Perez probably would have finished on the podium quite comfortably, to be honest. So, yeah, I think in this race, he's definitely got a chance for a podium. No doubt about it, because if the Red Bull can have good race pace, and we know Sergio Perez has good race pace and very good at looking after his tyres, which will definitely be a very important factor today. Yeah, I think Sergio Perez definitely has a good chance of a podium. He does need a bit of luck, though, as to what happens to the three ahead of him. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, 5 minutes or so to go until the Grand Prix gets underway. And yeah, make sure you keep piling in your predictions. And I'll try and read out as many as I can before the race, gets underway. So Andre Stam says Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, and then says Russell will finish in 8th place in his opinion. Nibberjibs says Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez as his top 3. Neil Stewart says Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez. Sandeep Gupta says Sainz, Hamilton, Bottas. That's very ambitious. Mark Thompson says Hamilton to win the Grand Prix from Bottas second, Verstappen third, Perez fourth, and Charles Leclerc in fifth. Storm Razor says Norris, Max, Hamilton. Marcel Neeson, I think it is, says Bottas to win from Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez. Bernard says Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Norris, and Vettel to finish in fifth place. That's another thing I want to bring up as well, Nib, is Sebastian Vettel, quickly before the race gets underway. It is, isn't it, great to see Vettel a lot more so now back to what we were expecting for this season.
Yeah, it was tremendous to see Sebastian in the top 10 in qualifying yesterday. And really, it's just nice to see that, you know, he can really perform in it. He still does have it. Hopefully, he does now translate that into having a good Grand Prix, because, of course, having the speed in qualifying is one thing, but then keeping it clean and making great overtakes in the race is another thing. You know, Vettel has made some brilliant overtakes so far this season, but, of course, he had that crash with Ocon at Bahrain, and, you know, hopefully he has a good race today.
Yeah, hopefully he does. By the way, thank you for the donation, David P, for $2, I think it was. Didn't put a message, but thank you very much for that. Vanir Gaming says Hamilton, he thinks will win from Verstappen, Perez, Bottas. Let's see if I can read out 2 or 3 more, and then we'll get to the Grand Prix here, which is starting in about 3 minutes' time. Ravan, if I've mispronounced that, very, very sorry. Says Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Vettel is his prediction. Luis Angeles says Max, Perez, Hamilton. Omzi Gaming Studio says Hamilton, Verstappen, Carlos. I think, judging by the predictions, a lot of people think, and let's be honest, Bottas is, you know, been good around this track and has been good so far this weekend, but we are most likely expecting it to be Hamilton versus Verstappen for obvious reasons, because they are the two best on the grid, and they have much better race pace as drivers than Valtteri Bottas has, unfortunately. But I think in a minute, and by the way, thank you for another donation from Vixen for $2, who asks, will Mazepin finish the race? I'm going to say no, because there's gravel traps here. What do you think, Nib?
Come on, Chance. I mean, what is it? Out of turn 4, it's quite difficult, and with the wind, he might get caught out. So, yeah, I think he might get caught out by the wind. There was a gust of wind, and yeah, I think he might retire from that. I don't know.
Well, Nico Rosberg is here this weekend, so maybe he brought that gust of wind with him for this Grand Prix. But right, let's get some of the graphics ready here, as they're just doing the starting grid again on the TV broadcast. So yeah, so you guys know, and let me just get up some of the things here. We obviously will not be streaming the race, but we will be doing basically a radio-style commentary of the events going on. So if you want to keep absolutely up to date with what is going on, then here is a great place to be. And that is, of course, the starting grid on the left-hand side. Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Ocon, Norris, Leclerc, Gasly, Vettel is your top 10. And the rest of the field is Russell, Giovinazzi, Alonso, Tsunoda, Raikkonen, Ricciardo, Stroll, Latifi, Schumacher, and Mazepin. As should be, formation lap should be getting underway in just a moment. And I believe, I should have checked really before I came on today, but I believe it is a 66 lap Grand Prix here in Portugal, which will be confirmed, I think, in a moment. As be interesting as well to see the tyre choice of the cars, who are, of course, outside of the top 10, because I think because of that tyre warm-up situation, I think you might get a couple cars go for the soft compound tyre. So that is all the graphics on screen at the minute. And of course, when the race gets underway, I will update the lap counter and the running order as the race goes on. As the the formation lap will be getting underway in just a moment, and we'll let you know as to outside the top 10 what tyres people are on. And so what you got: Russell, Giovinazzi, Alonso, Tsunoda on medium tyres, Raikkonen and Stroll on the soft tyres, and then Ricciardo, Latifi, and the 2 Haas cars on the medium compound of tyre. Not surprised with Raikkonen because his grid position was not very good. As the formation lap is now underway in Portugal, not surprised about Raikkonen. I mean, his great start last year was massively helped by starting on the soft tyre, and also because it is Kimi Raikkonen. As, formation up underway, and no problems as of yet, as they're showing on the screen, the predicted pit stop strategy. If you're starting on the medium, go till about lap 27 to lap 38, and then put on the soft, or if you start on the soft, pit between lap 17 and 24, to go onto a set of medium compound tyres, as they're almost now halfway through the lap on this formation lap, and really cannot wait for the start here, because of course it's a very critical one, but also it's a very tricky beginning of the race because of how tight turn 1, 2 and 3 and even turn 4 is. So hopefully no contact, but it can be very important to get ahead, as Bottas coming towards the end of this formation lap. Just coming into turn 13 and turn 14 corners, which have proven to be very tricky this weekend for the drivers. Lots of moments in those corners. As now Bottas comes round turn 15, which is obviously the right-hand kink on what is really the final straightaway. And Bottas now comes onto the straight. So race should be getting underway in about, 45 seconds to a minute at most. So get ready, guys, for the Portuguese Grand Prix. A Grand Prix which I'm sure will be a very, very intriguing one, as Bottas is progressively coming up to his starting position. Hopefully this time Bottas will not fade like he did last year. Last year, faded really after Hamilton passed him because of his poor tyre management. So let's hope Valtteri Bottas can stay in the race a bit longer, and hope that Verstappen can still have a go at the 2 Mercedes in this early championship fight between Hamilton and Verstappen. Reminder, Hamilton leads the championship by just 1 point from Max Verstappen. And the only reason he leads by a point is because he got the fastest lap in the last Grand Prix at Imola. But all the cars are just about now lined up on the grid. Last couple cars lining up now, and the lights will be coming on very momentarily. And here we go for the Portuguese Grand Prix. And the lights have come on. It's 3 lights, it's 4 lights, it's 5 lights in Portugal. And lights out and away we go. And Valtteri Bottas has had a good start. Hamilton, though, has as well. Verstappen, not so much. Hamilton tries to get ahead of Bottas, but he cannot do so. And he can maybe try and have a go at turn 3. Verstappen, though, right behind Lewis Hamilton. Will he have a go? Not at the moment. Carlos Sainz has had a very good start. He's passed Sergio Perez at the minute to get up to 4th position, as Perez, I think, is struggling with tyre warm-up, as Esteban Ocon is now right behind, and so is Lando Norris here on this first lap. And Ocon goes down the inside of Norris at the turn 5 hairpin, and I think Ocon's got the position back, as there's an Alpine slightly wide off the track there, actually very wide off the track there, but it's Bottas leading from Hamilton, and then Verstappen, as they're already clearly pulling a gap to Carlos Sainz behind. And thankfully, no contact. And really, the order is really mostly the same as it was, as Norris trying to go right round the outside Ocon at turn 11. Has he done so? Yes, he has. What a move by Lando Norris. Up into 6th place, or maintaining his 6th place, as Leclerc just behind Ocon as well. Thankfully, no contact on that first lap, as we are going to, in a moment, begin lap 2 out of 66. And again, it's Bottas leading from Hamilton 2nd and Verstappen 3rd. really, it's got away in terms of the order. Ricciardo, thankfully, is making a couple positions. Oh, there's contact in the background. Is that an Alfa Romeo? I think it is. It is Kimi Räikkönen. He's clipped someone, and his front wing has gone under his car, and he's just gone straight on. And I think he's got too much damage. He's out of the race, isn't he? Räikkönen.
I think he might have clipped his teammate.
Yeah, they looked very close to each other, and he was right behind Giovinazzi, was Kimi Räikkönen, as Ricciardo. And we've now got a safety car on lap 2 out of 66. No surprise there. And we'll see in a moment. And, well, we can't see from that replay if it was contact with his teammate. But you are right in terms of he was with Giovinazzi. And yes, it was. Clipped the back of him. So the teammates collide. What a disaster for Alfa Romeo. And hopefully Giovinazzi doesn't have a puncture to his rear tyre. Because that will be... And here we go. And that's simply Kimi Räikkönen's fault, isn't it? That's very clumsy driving, wasn't it there?
Oh, I'm just seeing the replay now. And yeah, that's very, very bad by Kimi.
Yeah, it absolutely
very
was. And safety car will be coming through the pit lane because of debris, I think, on the start-finish straight. And yeah, Räikkönen just seemingly too lazy in getting his car out of the slipstream of his teammate. Really unusual mistake. You'd think Räikkönen would be wise to that sort of thing, but clearly not. And Kimi Räikkönen is out of the Grand Prix, as we're now on lap 3 out of 66. And we have a safety car, as the safety car is going to pick the cars up on the exit of the pit lane in just a moment. So let me just quickly do the order here on lap 3. So Bottas leading from Hamilton, Verstappen, Sainz in 4th place, Perez 5th, and then Norris, Ocon, Leclerc, Gasly, Vettel, Russell in P11, then Giovinazzi 12th. Ricciardo's made a good start. He's gone from 16th up to 13th. And then you've got Fernando Alonso in 14th place for Alpine. And then Yuki Tsunoda is down to 15th. And then 16th is Lance Stroll. And then 17th, Latifi. And then I think it's 18th, Schumacher, 19th, Mazepin, and 20th, Raikkonen. I'll let you take us through the start, Nib.
Yeah, we're just about seeing the start now. Very, very poor start by Sergio Perez, that's for sure. Hamilton, Bottas got a pretty solid start. The Sainz went around the outside of Perez at turn 2. You can just see how much more extra grip Sainz has compared to Sergio Perez. As then he gets him down into turn 4. As Sainz has gone a mile wide off at turn 4. But yeah, I just love how at this track you can go side by side. The Lando Norris's overtake on Esteban Ocon was absolutely beautiful. As you can see him trying to go up the inside, not able to do it, but then of course, just now he gets a very good exit and he's able to set up that overtake because we're on board with Perez. Oh, and the second phase of the start by Perez was pretty poor.
Yeah.
Had quite a lot of wheel spin, and that just allowed Sainz to go around the outside.
It did. And yes, Sainz going massively off there, but Sainz already had the position, so I don't think Carlos Sainz will have to give that one back. Here's a replay of Daniel Ricciardo's start from 16th place and locking up the inside front, but didn't really get anywhere close to anyone there. Then a lock up ahead from, I think, the AlphaTauri, and nicely minding his business. And then through turn 4, someone clipped the inside of the corner there. Ricciardo also running massively wide. And then, yeah, just another replay of Kimi Räikkönen clipping the back of his teammate and is out of the race. If you don't know, Kimi Räikkönen out of the race after contact with his teammate. And again, a very clumsy incident where he just seemed to almost... like he lost focus because he didn't even try to turn away from Giovinazzi. He just went straight into the back of him and then started to turn after the contact was made. So, yeah, very, very poor from Kimi Raikkonen as his car now being took away, and that's another potential points finish out the window for Raikkonen when really could have had a points finish the first two races, and well, probably could have had a points finish today if he was still in the race. As we're on lap 4 out of 66, we are under safety car conditions. I'd assume we'll get going probably at the end of lap 5, because they are just now clearing away Kimi Raikkonen's car, as currently they're up into turn 11 is the safety car and the front running drivers. But really, at the start, no real massive changes of position. Everyone is mostly in the position they started in. The only changes are Norris ahead of Ocon, Sainz ahead of Perez, Ricciardo up past Alonso and Tsunoda, and that's it really. No massive changes again to the positions. And I think once the safety car comes in, I don't really see there being massive changes for position going into turn 1, 2, and 3 on the restart of the race, which should be at the end of lap 5. And yeah, just waiting really for the race to get going again. Let me just quickly read the chat. He was checking sat nav. Poor Kimi, old dude, also cut him some slack. It's just a hobby. Brabham says he was probably making changes on the steering wheel. Well, if we see a replay, then I'll try and look out for that. But I'm not sure if he was. I can't remember.
It didn't look like it from his onboard that he was changing. As you were saying, it certainly did look like he just lost focus and was maybe a bit surprised by the power of the slipstream he had.
Yeah, he just failed to recognize that he was that close. Maybe he just, like you said, miscalculated the slipstream effect and how close he was, or how close he could get to Giovinazzi. Also, remember, he was starting on the soft compound tyre, and Giovinazzi started on the medium, so he probably, Raikkonen, got a great run off of the final corner, the final real corner, which of course is turn 14, as I'll just quickly update lap 5 out of 66. Don't think the race will get going again at the minute, or is the safety car? No, the safety car's still there. So probably at the end of the next lap, which is lap 6 out of 66, I think we'll get going for this Grand Prix. And really, I think the biggest thing to look at on the restart, I mean, of course, the front three, we'll keep a very keen eye out for that. But Sergio Perez in 5th place does need to desperately get his way past Carlos Sainz, because he is much faster and will be very quickly on much faster tyres than the Ferrari driver of Carlos Sainz, who is on the soft compound tyres. They're warming their tyres up on the pit straight, and yeah, hopefully we get the signal in a moment that the safety car is ending.
I have no idea why we're not back racing. Everything's clear. Kimi's car's out of the gravel trap. All the debris gone. Why are we not back underway?
I know. I like I said,
that was done on the previous lap.
I know. Well, that's like I said, and now it's going to be coming in at the end of this lap. They've just confirmed. I thought at most it would be in at the end of the last lap, but yeah, I took a bit too long there, I think, without doubt. As a safety car in this lap, so hold on to your seats, guys, because we are about to get racing yet again and have 60, hopefully, clean and non-safety car or virtual safety car or red flag laps of racing here, as they are just coming through to the second half of the lap and into turn 10 and 11, so we'll be getting underway very shortly, and it'll be interesting to see when Bottas lets go, because of course he will now become the safety car and will hold the pack up behind him. You'd have to say he really has to be making sure he holds them up until the start-finish line, because one thing he does not want to be doing is giving Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen a massive slipstream through the kink of turn 15 and the whole pit straight. So I'm expecting Bottas here to really hold the pack up. And he is, at the minute, almost losing the rear end a bit there. Hamilton keeping very close behind him. And surely Bottas, if he has sense, will wait until the very last moment, until green flag racing, which is the start-finish line. Can't overtake until the start-finish line, which they're very close to now. Bottas still waiting, and now he goes for it, I think. He does, and I think he's left Hamilton and Verstappen for dead, as Verstappen gets in the slipstream of Lewis Hamilton. Will Verstappen go right round the outside? He does just about. I think he kept it on the track. I don't know for sure, though, but Perez is up to 4th now. Norris is up to 5th. Carlos Sainz has lost a few positions. He's now down to 6th. and might be down to 7th behind Esteban Ocon. No, he's got back ahead as Lando Norris now trying to go for the move on Sergio Perez at the turn 5 hairpin. And Norris gets it done. Massive lock-up by Carlos Sainz, but will keep the position. Charles Leclerc's had a very good restart to this race. He's up past Esteban Ocon at the minute for 7th position. Ocon, though, will hold on to it. Will he? Yes, he will. As Daniel Ricciardo also making up a position on that restart, as Ocon now being overtaken by Charles Leclerc. What a move by Leclerc, and great restart by him. But it is Bottas now leading from Max Verstappen in second. We'll see a replay of Verstappen, as Russell has just lost a couple positions to Ricciardo and Giovinazzi, but it looked as though Verstappen, to me, just about kept it within the limits of the circuit. We'll have to see a replay, though, as there's an Aston Martin or an Alpine, I think, in the background going side by side with the Williams. It's Alonso overtaking the Williams of George Russell, but it is now lap 8 out of 66. And Bottas leading from Verstappen. We've got cars side by side down the pit straight. It's Alonso and Russell. Can Alonso get ahead? Yes, he does, ahead of the Williams. So let me just update some of the order. Might
I just say, Chaz, I think Hamilton wouldn't have expected Bottas to go really, really late because, you know, if he somewhat had matched him, he would have done exactly what Verstappen did to Hamilton. So I think Bottas did certainly catch Hamilton by surprise, but Ricciardo's had a tremendous restart, whereas George Russell has really, really struggled. He's all the way down into 15th now as Lance Stroll overtakes him.
Absolutely. We're now seeing a replay of the start. So, yeah, Bottas, and I said it at the time, left Hamilton for dead, and then Verstappen's
very close, by the way. He's only 4 tenths behind.
As I've just seen a replay here, and yep, Verstappen did keep it within the track limits. A legitimate overtake by Max Verstappen there. Great overtake round the outside. That's exactly what you'd expect of a driver going for the championship. Great overtakes like that. And not easy to mug the 7-time world champion around the outside like that. As seeing a replay again of Norris when he passed Sergio Perez. And Norris, and yeah, Verstappen, as you said, he's now only half a second behind Valtteri Bottas. Just under now, even half a second. Now it's about 4 tenths of a second. So Verstappen, without doubt, in the fight here. As DRS is now enabled on lap 9. Without doubt in the fight, as he now has DRS on Bottas, and Hamilton also has DRS. We're in, I think, for really a 3-way scrap. For this early phase, at least, of the Grand Prix. But Norris is up to 4th. And then you've got Perez in 5th place. Carlos Sainz 6th. Leclerc 7th. And then Esteban Ocon is in 8th place. Gasly 9th. Vettel 10th. Like you said, Nib, Ricciardo, great start to the Grand Prix for him. He's up to P11. Giovinazzi is in 12th place. Alonso is in 13th. As Verstappen looks as though he might be able to shape up a move here on the pit straight for Valtteri Bottas. He's nearly all over the back of him through these final 2 real corners. We'll see as they go through the turn 15 kink now. What can Max Verstappen do here on now lap 10 out of 66? Can Verstappen go for the move and get in the slipstream? He's got the slipstream. He's got the DRS. He's closing. Will Bottas defend? No, he won't. I think smartly Bottas did not go overly defensive. I think Verstappen might have forced him to make a bit of a mistake. But without doubt, Nib, Max Verstappen looking really quick here for the battle for victory.
Yeah, through the middle sector, that Red Bull is absolutely rapid. The gap he was able to pull to Hamilton even behind was remarkable whilst he's in the dirty air of this Mercedes. And it really does look like it's only going to be a matter of time before Verstappen can get the move done here on Valtteri Bottas. Of course, it's much harder to overtake than it is to cruise up to the back. But here at Portimao, with that slipstream and with the DRS, we saw just how much he closed on the last lap. And if he can get close enough here, he might be able to make the move.
Yeah, absolutely might be able to make the move. And yeah, we can see from the onboard here of Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is, well, definitely not that close really to the cars ahead of him. He's got DRS on the two cars ahead, which is good for him to stay in contention. Verstappen has quite a twitch on the exit of turn 14, but for most of that lap, Verstappen was definitely a lot closer to Bottas than Hamilton was to Verstappen. But saying that, Hamilton now a lot closer after Max Verstappen, I think, fell out of DRS there. And Hamilton now pulls to the inside for turn 1. And Hamilton gets the position. Great racing between Hamilton and Verstappen. Will Max go for the move? Goes round the outside. Surely he's not going to go right round the outside. No, Hamilton pushes him wide. Very forceful stuff from Lewis Hamilton. Great racing, and don't know if Verstappen will have anything to complain about with Hamilton pushing him wide there, but I think we saw there, Nib, didn't we, on the exit turn 14, Verstappen making quite a critical mistake.
Yeah, that huge twitch he had, which you called at the time, really did cost him. He lost half a second, and of course, with the long corner and down the main straight, all of that speed goes down the straight as Martin Brundle can't quite understand the twitch out of turn 14. But yeah, the rear end stepping out really did cost him dearly, as Hamilton did make a great move up the inside at turn 1, and then Verstappen nearly got him back, but he just was forced out by Hamilton. That's more of what we expect from Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, that's absolutely what you would expect after getting really mugged off around the outside, then responding big time. And now Hamilton, he hasn't got DRS, but he is 9/10 of a second behind Bottas. Verstappen now has dropped he's now not got DRS on Hamilton ahead. So Verstappen really struggling on that lap, and hopefully he can get back up to speed and get back into the fight here, because he doesn't want to be falling too far behind after making a great start to the Grand Prix, as Hamilton does have DRS now on Valtteri Bottas and is only 3/4 of a second behind, which is, well, in Formula 1, quite a big gap, but as you can see on the TV broadcast, Hamilton looks as though he might be able to shape up for a move on the pit straight the next time around if he doesn't make a mistake like Max Verstappen. And I'm sure Hamilton will probably be calling for Valtteri to not be too aggressive in defence, because Hamilton, if he can get past Bottas here, then in Hamilton's fight against Verstappen, that is critical, as he's about 6/10 of a second behind the Mercedes through the, or now 7/10 behind on the exit of turn 14, turn 14 now through turn 15. Don't think he'll be able to go for a move here. He's not close enough, but he will close the gap quite a bit by 3 or 4/10 of a second, as on now lap 13 at a 66, as Hamilton actually did gain quite a lot at the end of that straight. The rest of the order is as it was, and as it is on the left-hand side of the screen, as Hamilton does a new fastest lap of 1 minute 22.2. And definitely looks in the ascendancy. And Verstappen now has started to get back up to speed. He's now starting to gain on Valtteri Bottas. Was 2.1 behind, now it's more like 1.7, 1.8. Verstappen now starting to respond. And
it's just unbelievable, Chaz, how good Verstappen looked in the first couple of laps after the safety car come in. It looked like he's comfortably the fastest car on track. And he makes one mistake, and he is 2 seconds off the lead now.
Absolutely. It's a very quick turn of events, without doubt. Would you say here with Bottas and Hamilton, though, would team orders come into effect here soon enough? Because Hamilton is definitely much quicker.
No, I wouldn't say so. If Hamilton can get close enough, he'll be able to overtake him. As Yuki Tsunoda has got his second warning for track limits, so he can't be extending out of turn 1 anymore.
Well, if you remember to Imola, he did actually get a 5-second time penalty for violating track limits there, so does need to improve on that quite a bit. As Hamilton had DRS that lap, but was still definitely not close enough to go for the overtake, as he's about 0.7 of a second behind his teammate Valtteri Bottas, and Verstappen is about 1.9 to 2 seconds behind the leader, as Lando Norris still about a second ahead of Sergio Perez, which is a surprise, I have to say. Thought Perez would be getting on with that. And then you got Sainz in 6th, Leclerc 7th, Ocon 8th, Gasly 9th, Vettel 10th. Really, throughout the field, the only battle we've got where one driver has DRS on another is literally the battle for the lead. Every other battle out there, maybe except for Ocon Gasly. Saying that, Tsunoda has just passed Russell, but no real battles on track at the minute. Loads of battles to look out for, as Lewis Hamilton still pretty close to the back of the of his Mercedes teammate, as we're watching the wrong car, I'm afraid, of Max Verstappen. Will Hamilton be close enough this lap to go for the move on Valtteri Bottas? Let's see. No, he's not going to be close enough, but he will be only 2 or 3 tenths of a second behind, and he just needs to be probably 5 to 6 tenths of a second behind him through that kink of turn 15, as Perez has just passed Lando Norris. So Perez is up to 4th place, and hopefully for Red Bull, he can start to slowly chip away at the leading pace, but I wouldn't exactly expect him to do so. Norris, to be honest, did pretty well to be up in 4th place for as long as he was. So yeah, Perez back into 4th, and he should easily pull away from the cars behind him. As yeah, Hamilton still 8 tenths, now 7 tenths behind Valtteri Bottas. And now, and here's a replay of Perez passing Lando Norris. Norris not fighting it, rightfully so, because Sergio Perez is in a much faster car, without doubt. So, yeah. And here's a replay of Yuki Tsunoda passing George Russell on the exit of the turn 5 hairpin. And now we've cut back on lap 16 to Alonso versus Giovinazzi for 12th and 13th place. But everything's really, at the minute, is very stable.
I'm sorry, Chaz. I've lost it at the moment because Crofty just called George Russell Fernando Alonso. So
oh dear!
Classic Crofty back at it again. As Fernando's looking to make a move on Giovinazzi into turn 1, but he's not quite close enough.
Yeah, not close enough at the minute, but nice to see Alonso in a forward motion in terms of making his way up the field. But definitely nowhere near where he would want to be. Going to be pretty hard for the Alpine to pass the Alfa Romeo, because I think they're very similar, those two, Alpine and Alfa Romeo, on straight line speed. As Hamilton still within a second of Valtteri Bottas, but still unable to make the overtake work. And not sure if he's close enough this time. We'll have to see as they come onto the pit straight now. Nah, well, we'll see when we get to turn 1, but probably not, I'd imagine, as they head down. And note, Hamilton's still not close enough. And be interesting to see how they do get Hamilton ahead, because they will want to get Hamilton ahead of Bottas here, because without doubt, if Lewis Hamilton got ahead, Lewis Hamilton would pull away from Bottas, and they do still need to protect themselves against Max Verstappen, who's still there and still close enough for Mercedes to be worried, as Hamilton slightly wide through the turn 5 hairpin on the exit, but still easily within a second as they come through turn 8 again. But yep, the order still as it is. Bottas from Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, Norris, Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon, Gasly, Vettel. Your top 10 at the minute on lap 17 out of 66. Soon to be lap 18 out of 66. As Hamilton went a bit wide there, lost 0.3 of a second in turn 13, which won't be good, but luckily for him, Max Verstappen still unable to get within a second. Would you say Verstappen, Nib, just doesn't have the pace, or is he just holding back for later in the race?
Yeah, I'm really not too sure at the moment because he is just sticking there. It's not like he's losing lots and lots of time. Yeah, I'm not really too sure with you there, Chaz. He is staying there, but I don't know if he's has the pace to be able to close the gap or not.
Yeah, it's well, here we go. Let's get to another battle in the field. Daniel Ricciardo trying to pass Sebastian Vettel round the outside at turn 1, and he gets the move done. Daniel Ricciardo up into the points positions, and what a race he's having. Past Alonso, Tsunoda, Giovinazzi, Russell, and now Sebastian Vettel as well, who Vettel now relegated outside of the points. And a replay, and it was...
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, I'll go through the replay and then I'll make my point. With the DRS and the slipstream down into turn 1, it's pretty comfortable to make that move around the outside. I was just going to say, Chaz, that now we're really starting to see the crossover point between the softs and the mediums. As you know, we saw Norris lose out to Perez and then Vettel to Ricciardo. So those medium tyres really starting to come into their own at the moment, as Leclerc will probably start to close up to Carlos Sainz in the next few laps.
Yeah, you're absolutely bang on with that. That's why Ricciardo is actually not too far behind his next couple, what he hopes to be victims of Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. He is within 2 seconds of Gasly, and Gasly is just over a second behind Ocon. I have to say, from Norris really down to, say, Lance Stroll, it's very close. There's only 1 and a bit seconds between each car, so very close in the midfield and definitely not over by any stretch of the imagination in that midfield pack in terms of a battle. As there's a finger on the tactics button on the pit wall at Mercedes, I believe. And maybe that'll have something to do with, you know, getting Valtteri out of the way. Because again, clearly, as we can all see, Hamilton much faster than Valtteri Bottas. And really, Hamilton should have been on pole yesterday because, let's not forget, the two Mercedes did go out in their final run on the medium compound tyre, and Hamilton couldn't improve his time. And I think Hamilton was definitely the quicker of the two, as Hamilton is a lot closer, I think, here. Definitely on the exit of turn 14, we'll see as he comes through the kink of 15. But I think he'll might be able to go for a move here. We'll see. Hamilton gets the DRS, gets the slipstream. Will he force Valtteri Bottas into defending? Yes, he will. But Hamilton, will he go around the outside? Yes, he will. What an overtake by Lewis Hamilton. That's why he is the greatest of all time right there. What a move. Soon as he gets a chance, right round the outside, gets the move done, and see you later. What a move that was, Nib. Are you there, Nib?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm just in a bit of sorry, I was just listening into the commentary then, as now we're seeing immediately Verstappen trying to close up to the back of Bottas. But what a move by Hamilton there, because Bottas still defended, but I think Valtteri went a bit too defensive because he just went too far to the inside. He didn't really come back across. And yeah, that's a tremendous move, though, by Hamilton around the outside. But Verstappen here really sensing the moment, knowing that he has to get past Bottas here. And if he can stay close enough through 13 and 14, I think he'll be able to get the move done, Chaz.
Yeah, he looks just as close as Hamilton did, if not a tad closer. In fact, I'll say a bit closer. So yeah, Bottas in real trouble here. We said, didn't we? Hopefully Bottas's tyres last 20 laps. I think that might have been us jinxing him a bit, as Bottas does keep the position for now. Bottas still not too far behind his teammate Hamilton, but Hamilton definitely pulling a bit of a gap, and Verstappen, without doubt, is a lot closer to Bottas than Bottas is to Lewis Hamilton, as Bottas does briefly have DRS on Hamilton in between turn 4 and 5, but I'm expecting Hamilton to pull enough of a gap in the middle sector, as Hamilton says tyres are pretty shot, which is a bit of a surprise because you'd expect those tyres to go quite a bit longer, another 10 laps I would say at least, into this Grand Prix.
Yeah, but Chaz, it's literally what he said last year, that the tyres were shot, and then all of a sudden he just found all of this time out of nowhere. The tyres come back to him, and then he was able to get past Bottas last year. Yeah,
that is true. I do remember that, him saying that and then just getting past. And now Hamilton has pulled over a second to Valtteri Bottas. Verstappen not close enough to Valtteri Bottas, but is within DRS, so at least Verstappen still has that to keep him within bounds of Valtteri Bottas, but he won't be going for a move at the end of this corner or in the entry to turn 1. And yet, nowhere near close enough. And Verstappen has got to get past, because if he spends too long behind, he will lose too much time to Lewis Hamilton in the fight for victory. As Carlos Sainz is coming into the pits, so the soft compound tyres have done about what we thought they would do, about 20 laps. He now comes in and surely will put on a set of the, let's see what he goes on to, medium compound tyres as expected. As there's a AlphaTauri coming in. I think that's Yuki Tsunoda who's coming in there for, well, surprisingly, he did start on the medium, so I'm surprised he's come in that quickly, to be honest, on that tyre. But we are now on lap 22 at a 66. And yeah, Hamilton clearly ahead of Bottas. Now Verstappen still right on Bottas's tail, but not close enough, I would say, at the moment to actually get his way past. And the longer it takes, the more time he loses to Hamilton, and his chances of winning then become much more difficult. As I think in a moment, we'll just wait for these pit stops to happen, then I'll update the order in terms of where Sainz and Norris and cars like that are filtering out. As Lando Norris now comes into the pits on lap 23 at a 66, responding, of course, to Carlos Sainz, who was just behind in P6. And Norris just coming out ahead there of the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, who he comes in for the pits, and he puts on the, I think that was a hard compound he put on.
Yeah, the hard on Ocon.
As Vettel and Giovinazzi are in the pits, is Carlos Sainz. Easily overtakes George Russell, and Sainz, very close he was there to undercutting past Norris, but Norris has got back out ahead. But Sainz now in the ascendancy, and now has DRS, so might be able now to put Norris under pressure for what is a net 5th and 6th place. As up front, it is still as it is. Hamilton leading Bottas by 2 seconds, and Verstappen within DRS of Bottas, but not close enough to make an overtake work. As we're now on lap 24 at a 66, and I think what I'll do is wait and see what Pierre Gasly does in terms of the pit strategy, because if Gasly comes in this lap, then I'll make sure to update the order as to where the cars have pitted, where they have come out, as looks as though Norris pulling away towards the end of this lap. And well, Pierre Gasly has actually stayed out, so Gasly going to go maybe a few laps longer than Norris, Sainz, Ocon, Vettel. Sainz has DRS, trying to desperately put his mate under pressure, but he nowhere near close enough. And the Ferrari is, not strong enough in a straight line to get that move done. So because of those pit stops from Norris and Sainz and Vettel and Ocon, you've now got Leclerc in 5th, Gasly 6th. As Hamilton says, there's definitely a lot of wear today on his tyres. He's still, though, pulling away from Valtteri Bottas. Now you've got Leclerc in 5th, Gasly 6th, Ricciardo 7th, and then Alonso is in 8th, ahead of Lance Stroll, who is still on the soft compound tyre, interestingly. And then, at the minute, in 10th place is Lando Norris, even though he should be in a net 5th position, as he is now pulled out over a second gap to Carlos Sainz. So, and Pierre Gasly now comes into the pits. So we'll see where he filters out. Should be around 15th, 16th. You might actually get jumped here by Sebastian Vettel as Gasly goes on to the hard compound. I can't quite see. I think it's
that was the medium on Gasly.
Right, it's the medium on Gasly. As Gasly comes out, will he come out ahead of Esteban Ocon? Has he come out ahead of Esteban Ocon? Yes, he has. So he's jumped a position there. Gasly making his way past Ocon for what should be a net, say, 8th position. So good there from Pierre Gasly. And let me just update some of the order. So yeah, Leclerc 5th now. Ricciardo is into 6th position. And then 7th is Fernando Alonso, who's going a bit longer on his strategy. And then Lance Stroll is in 8th. And then looks as though Charles Leclerc is coming into the pits for hard compound tyres. And here he comes. This is a bit earlier than I would have expected him to come in, I have to say. And we'll see where he comes out. Might actually be under threat from Pierre Gasly after Gasly's great laps around the pit stop phase, as Leclerc now comes out of his pit stop, 3.4 second pit stop time. And he's behind Norris and Sainz, but no, should come out easily ahead of Gasly. And yes, he does. And Russell as well. So, Ricciardo now up into 5th place. Ricciardo, though, has not had a pit stop yet, as Verstappen is decently close to Bottas. And
yeah, he's been very close. Sorry, Chaz. He's been very close to Bottas through the whole entirety of the lap for the majority. But just in the final sector, he hasn't been able to stay close enough to get the move down into turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. As Hamilton is continuing to pull away on lap 27, hasn't done another fastest lap, a 1:22.1. And Verstappen just cannot get close enough, really, out of the final few corners to actually get an overtake done here. So Verstappen all the time losing time to Hamilton. He's still not too far behind. He's only, just under 3 seconds behind Hamilton, so it's not all over. But he is slowly but surely losing time to his rival. But yeah, let me just update the order, because at the minute we've got 3 Strolls on the screen. As, Ricciardo is 5th with Alonso 6th, Stroll 7th, then you got Norris in 8th. Sainz is in 10th place. Be interesting to see if Norris and Sainz can get to the end. I think they'll probably will, and they probably will at the very least try to, as just a slow-mo replay on the screen of Hamilton's medium compound tyres. And the left front doesn't look too great, but it still looks mostly fine, as Sebastian Vettel overtakes George Russell for 13th place. Of course, Russell is not pitted yet, and Vettel has, got to say, Williams' pace is quite poor. And I think that's why Russell is falling back, not because of himself, but because the Williams car just doesn't have the speed, I'm afraid, to keep up with the Aston Martins, the Alfa Romeo, so on and so forth. As, yeah, Russell down to 14th. You got Giovinazzi in 15th. Giovinazzi has pitted. So, and Giovinazzi is on the hard compound of tyre. And then after that, we've got Schumacher in 16th place, Mazepin in 17th, and then it is 18th Tsunoda, and then 19th at the minute is Nicholas Latifi. Is about to begin lap 29 here at the Grand Prix. And still, Verstappen just not close enough. I have to say, since those first, 10, 15 laps, really has not been that great in the racing, I have to say. So hopefully it does improve later on. We are coming up to, in a minute, halfway point of the Grand Prix, so still got plenty of time for stuff to occur. So don't go anywhere, because still plenty of things will, I'm sure, happen in this Grand Prix. I just want to say, don't forget to subscribe, guys, to the channel if you are new, because we will be doing watch-alongs for qualifying, F3 qualifying, and race for the remainder of 2021. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it there, or go to my homepage and go there and, subscribe there and hit the notifications button. Also, don't forget to smash a like button and share this video everywhere you can, as I think Nib, honestly, with Verstappen and Bottas, and really Max Verstappen's performance, we're probably going to have to wait until the pit stops here, aren't we? Because he just cannot get close enough out of the final couple corners.
Yeah, he really can't. The only way that he's going to be able to get past is by undercutting Bottas in the pit stops. Speaking of don't go anywhere, well, I certainly need to go because I need to pee. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Well, considering the quality of the race right now, it's not a bad time to take a piss break. So I'll let you go and do that. By the time he comes back, I don't think anything will really be different, as Russell has just pitted and has come out in 18th position. So let me just update that. So Russell down to 18th. So that promotes Giovinazzi up to 14th. Mick Schumacher is now up to 15th. Of course, the Haas cars have not pitted yet. That's why they are up in the positions they are, which are 16th and, 15th rather, and 17th. So yeah, Mazepin 17th, and then Russell 18th. And Yuki Tsunoda, by the way, is in 16th place, having a very poor afternoon, I have to say, in the AlphaTauri. As towards the end of the lap, Verstappen yet again cock teases us, making us think that he's close enough for an overtake, but ultimately he is still not close enough, because he just cannot get the exit, I think, of turn 14 well enough. He can't do it well enough in the dirty air to actually get close enough, like Lewis Hamilton did, to Valtteri Bottas to get his way past. Because I'm sure if Verstappen can force Valtteri Bottas into defending, then I am sure, as Latifi here tries to pass George Russell down the inside, what is happening to Russell today? He's been overtaken by his teammate. This is very poor by him. That's the fight for last place, by the way, between the two Williamses, a place where they're used to being. What was I going to say? Yeah, if Verstappen can force Valtteri Bottas into defending, I'm sure Verstappen can get past with one clean overtake like Hamilton did round the outside. He just needs to get close enough on that pit straight to force him into defense, but he just cannot do so. And that mistake at the exit of turn 14 that led to Hamilton passing him, he'll be ruining most likely for the rest of the Grand Prix and probably for the next week or so. if he doesn't win this race. Because, yeah, that cost him big time. Because if he did get past Bottas before Hamilton did, I think Verstappen would be in a nice position going forward. As Verstappen is now, I think, actually, without DRS, is Hamilton now on lap 32 out of 66. Does the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 21.9. Max does have DRS, but nowhere near close enough yet again to the Mercedes, as Hamilton is 3.5 seconds clear. I got to say, Sergio Perez's pace is pretty good. I mean, he's lapping not too far off what his teammate's doing. It's about the same in terms of Perez's lap times to Max Verstappen's. But I think him getting held up behind Norris for so long really cost Perez a lot, because he should be, factoring in this battle somehow. But I'm afraid he just isn't going to, unless something dramatic happens, as in, the next lap will be officially halfway through the Grand Prix. As Verstappen, I think, is probably just going to have to try and undercut here. That's the only way I can see him getting past, as he goes wide at turn 13, loses 0.3 of a second. Don't worry, Nib, you've missed nothing. As Verstappen still not close enough to the back of Bottas, and even now falling too far behind to receive DRS. So, yeah, I think he's going to have to get it done in the pit stop phase if he's going to get past. As Mazepin comes into the pits for Haas F1, and he should come out, Mazepin, in last position, and yes, he will. I'll update that in just a moment. But yeah, very stagnant at the minute. What we're waiting for is the pit stop phase for the front three, but also Ricciardo 5th, Alonso 6th, and Stroll in 7th. Those three have not pitted yet, so they will have a big say in the point scoring positions later. We just need to wait until that later point. But at the minute, nothing is really happening. What would you say, Nib, for Verstappen? Would you say undercut or overcut to get past?
They've got an undercut here. The undercut is quite powerful around this track. Well, it certainly seemed like it last year and throughout some of the occasions so far. This race is Ocon. Can he get close enough to Gasly into turn 1? Just not able to quite get it done. But yeah, I don't know. I think the undercut is certainly the way to go. And just to make it all clear to this person in the chat that I saw, make sure you wash your hands. I certainly did wash my hands. So we're all good.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Lap 34 out of 66. Hamilton has done another new fastest lap. He's now 3.5 seconds clear of Bottas, and Verstappen now 1.4 seconds behind Bottas. So Verstappen does need the pit stop, I think, very soon to dispose of his tyres and to somehow now get back into a position where he can fight for victory, because he's now just over 5 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton in the battle for victory. As Ocon is within a second of Pierre Gasly in the fight for 11th and 12th of the minute, but this is a net fight for 8th and 9th, and Ocon has got the slipstream, got the DRS. Gasly will defend to the inside, and surely Ocon on the hard compound tyre will go around the outside, and he does, and Gasly goes too wide, and Ocon back up to 11th. Great fight and resilience there from Esteban Ocon to get up into P11. As Gasly down to 12th, and he'll be disappointed with that, as I've noticed Mick Schumacher has finally come into the pits from 15th position, and comfortable overtake there for Esteban Ocon. I have to say though, when it comes to DRS around this track, yeah, it can be a bit too over the top around here, but really, at the minute, it's saving this race, because there's not really much going on, I have to say, in this Grand Prix at the minute. really just waiting for later on. We are, in terms of battles and fights on track. So, yeah, still got plenty of time to go, I think, until the final result is confirmed. So we're now on lap 35. And, yeah, Hamilton now 4 seconds clear of Bottas. So Hamilton looking comfortable up front. And you got to say, Hamilton looking the clear, undisputed favourite to win this race, because Verstappen just cannot get close enough to Bottas. And even if he does get past Bottas, he has another 5 seconds to make up. So, yeah, it'd be pretty tough, I think, for Max Verstappen to get past. For saying that, he now comes into the pits on lap 36 out of 66. So now let's see whether that undercut we were talking about can work for him as he comes into the pits and he goes on to the hard compound tyre. And let's see if he can get those fired up as quickly as possible. Perez will go up to third, temporarily, of course. And Verstappen will be pushed back down into fourth position. So surely Mercedes will respond with Valtteri Bottas first, because Bottas, well, he's 4 seconds behind Hamilton, so he's not exactly under threat. As Verstappen, did he slow down there for the pit entry? I'm not sure he did. He was locking up after that marker board. He might be in trouble for that. We'll have to see.
Well, we'll have to see. He certainly did go very aggressive into the pit lane.
Yeah, he was very aggressive, and it looked as though, to me, he might have actually sped. Hopefully not, though, because that will ruin, of course, the race in terms of the action on circuit if he does indeed incur a penalty. But if he has gone too quickly, then, of course, he does have to get a penalty. As Bottas, I think, is going to come in. Yes, he does on lap 37, and he should maintain the lead. Maintain second place, rather, over Max Verstappen. A net second place as Verstappen exiting turn 14 now, and I just don't think that Verstappen is going to be close enough. Probably still going to be a second or so between the two, as Bottas will come out of the pits now. Verstappen is flying down the pit straight, and Verstappen will gain a bit through turn 1 and 2 because of the nature of how Valtteri is entering that part of the track. So Max is back within a second, but Valtteri Bottas going very wide in turn 3, and now Max Verstappen in the slipstream. DRS Bottas not even defending, and he can't really defend, and Max Verstappen blocks him out and gets the position. Bottas has absolutely bottled it, and Max is up to third, what is a net, though, second place. Bottas, yeah, bottling it big time, as Lewis Hamilton will now come into the pits here. So we'll see what Verstappen has been able to do compared to Lewis Hamilton in terms of the undercut. Verstappen now a second and a half clear, as Charles Leclerc has just passed Carlos Sainz for position. We haven't seen it. They're very close on track still, are the two Ferraris, but Leclerc has got past, and now yet has got past for sure, as Perez now into the lead. Perez, of course, has not pitted yet, and Hamilton, again, should rejoin in the lead comfortably, and he does on lap 38 out of 66. He is, I stress, he is in the net lead. He is not in the official lead, as Perez is in the lead, but of course, Sergio Perez has not pitted yet. So Perez is currently leading from Hamilton second, and then it is Max Verstappen in third place, and then Valtteri Bottas is now down to fourth, and surely Bottas is heading for a third place finish here, because he really, in a critical moment, bottled it big time, Nib, didn't he? On the exit of turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, he had a massive slide out of turn 3, didn't he? He really struggled to get the tyre warm up, as we're seeing. It looks like Leclerc was let through by Carlos Sainz.
Well, that's a surprise, to be fair. There's a replay, and Bottas simply got the power down too hard on the exit of turn 3, and that's what led to him. And because of the way he positioned himself on the exit of turn 4, he couldn't really go to the inside to defend, because Max was already there, so he kind of had to give that position up. And yeah, Valtteri, well, that was a very bad mistake by him, as we've got, 27 laps to go, I believe, of this Grand Prix. Perez leading by 12.5 seconds. I do stress, though, has not pitted yet, so don't think that he's actually leading or for real, because he will have to come into the pits again. But if he can go a bit longer, then he might be able later on to come back at Bottas, because he wasn't miles away from that fight, the Bottas Verstappen fight, about 8 seconds off. So if he can have a very good few laps here whilst doing the overcut, I mean, he's 18 seconds ahead of Bottas at the minute. That won't be enough to rejoin ahead of him, but if he can keep pushing like this, then might give himself a chance of a podium later on. So good job here by Sergio Perez as he continues on now onto lap 40 out of 66. And just looking through the field, yeah, there's no real close battles out there. No one within a second of each other. So really just waiting for Ricciardo, Alonso and Stroll to come into the pits, because I think they're going to have a massive say on who wins the midfield scrap at the end of this Grand Prix. I have to say, Nib, though, for Daniel Ricciardo, with the fresher tyres he'll be on, he could definitely nick a few points here, because I think he's 25 seconds ahead of Gasly, and that's about the time you need for a pit stop.
Yeah, you'd expect him to come out around Pierre Gasly, that's for sure. And I think they could be just waiting for a safety car, as Lance Stroll is now into the pits off of those soft tyres, which certainly went a while, as Perez is starting to complain about vibration. So you'd assume he'd be into the pits relatively soon, as he's got that gap to Ricciardo required.
Yep, he does, as just updating the order. So Stroll has come out in 14th place and about 3 or 2.5 seconds behind Antonio Giovinazzi. Stroll, though, will have fresher tyres, and remember, he does, Stroll, have a pretty quick car in a straight line, so he might be able to make up some positions. As now Ocon within a second of Sainz, so Carlos Sainz is really starting to struggle here in the Ferrari. I've got to say, Ferrari's pace is not as good as I thought it would be. They're, well, Leclerc's clearly quite a bit behind Norris, as Alonso's coming into the pits now. And yes, Sainz is really starting to struggle now in the other Ferrari, as Alonso will come in for hard compound tyres. Alonso should come out. He might come out ahead of Sebastian Vettel here. We'll have to see, as he comes out of the pit lane. And yet Ocon tries to go for the move on Carlos Sainz, but he can't get it done. And Alonso will exit the pits. And yes, I think he does. Alonso has. Yes, he has. Fernando Alonso has jumped Sebastian Vettel and Antonio Giovinazzi. So great overcut there by Alonso, doing exactly what he needed to do. And now he is in not a net points position, but he's not too far off and does have, as we know, much fresher tyres compared to Norris, Leclerc, Sainz, Ocon, Gasly ahead. So watch out for Alonso, as Lewis Hamilton does a new fastest lap on lap 42 out of 66. And it's a 1:21.4 for Hamilton. Perez, his lap times are still good, Perez, considering that he has been out quite a while. As Daniel Ricciardo now comes in. So Daniel Ricciardo should come out around Pierre Gasly, and he'll be hoping he comes out ahead. And that was a bit of a slow pit stop. Yeah, that was about 2 to 3 seconds slower than it needed to be. And that, I think, is going to cost him to Pierre Gasly. As Ocon going for the move on Sainz. Can he get the move done? No. Can he have a go into turn 3? No, he cannot. And yeah, Ricciardo has come out behind Gasly, and that pit stop has cost him. That is, not a good moment there for McLaren. As I can hear you groaning in the background, so I know you're very disappointed with that.
Yeah, slow front right, and cost him quite a significant amount of time. He would have been right alongside Pierre Gasly coming out the pit lane without the mistake, probably.
Yeah, as at least though he does have, as Hamilton does another new fastest lap, at least he does have those fresher tyres, which will help him massively later on as Hamilton does another 1 minute 21.4 and goes with another fastest lap. So yeah, Gasly is up to 9th place now, and then Ricciardo comes back out where he was before the cars ahead of him pitted, but he is looking in a stronger position. Alonso, I have to say, also in a stronger position in 11th place. As we're now on lap 43 out of 66. As Esteban Ocon going to go for another overtake on Sainz, but ultimately not close enough on the entry to turn number 1. If you want to know, guys, the gap between Verstappen and Hamilton, it's about 3.5 to 4 seconds. It keeps fluctuating between. Hamilton, though, does look as though he has the quicker car at the minute. So, as I thought Perez was coming to the pits then, but Valtteri Bottas has just done the fastest lap of the race. And Bottas 2.5 seconds behind Verstappen. I will say Bottas's race pace is, as Hamilton does the fastest lap now with 21.3. Bottas's race pace is a lot better than it was last year at this particular Grand Prix, but still not in a position that Mercedes would have been hoping for, as we've only got 22 laps left here. And really, this is the battle, Ocon and Sainz. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with Ocon and Alpine here, because I thought maybe he would just progressively drop back through the field, but it looks as though he's got the pace here for a top 7 finish, as Bottas is actually gaining quite a bit now on Verstappen. Verstappen's lost a bit of time to Hamilton, and Bottas is only 2.2 seconds behind. As Ocon, will he go round the outside of Carlos Sainz this time? Yes, he will for P7, and Carlos Sainz's struggle in the second phase, or the second stint of the Grand Prix, continues. Ocon up into P7 ahead of Carlos Sainz. Great there for Ocon. We've seen it plenty of times today. A sailing move around the outside, which is definitely the favoured line with such momentum you carry with DRS off of the final, or off of the pit straight. So great there for Ocon. But it really does not look like Verstappen has the pace, and might actually be under threat from Bottas here for second place again, because dropping off quite a bit from Hamilton now.
Yeah, it just seems as if the Mercedes certainly a lot more comfortable on these hard compounded tyres. Max being informed that he's losing a lot of time in turn 8 to the Mercedes. It looks like the Mercedes just able to get every little bit of performance out of these tyres. And if Bottas can get in that DRS on slipstream, he could very well get it done. As George Russell's complaining that his car is basically undrivable when they're in the turbulent air of another driver. So that's why he's struggling so much. As
Nikita Mazepin is in the pits again, don't know why, as Mick Schumacher is actually right behind Nicholas Latifi at the minute. Mazepin, not sure if he's flat spotted his tyres or something, or if he's retiring. Nope, just coming back out in what is last position, as we're now on lap 46 out of 66. I mean, if Bottas is gaining now on Verstappen, imagine Perez later on on much fresher tyres. And I'm assuming if he's got a set of soft compound tyres left, he might be able to really get up to the back of those lot, as I think we'll see on the timing screen. I think Mazepin was just moving out of the way. I thought he had a problem there, but I think he was just moving out of the way there of the Red Bull. And yeah, Mazepin had just come out of the pits. And Perez goes down the inside, and Mazepin, I can see, making even more friends in Formula One with that move at turn 3.
Sorry, me.
That's
what an idiot.
Yeah, very poor. Almost had a similar incident to, I'm sure you'll remember this, to the one between Mark Webber and Guido van der Garde in Canada that time. At the hairpin in Canada, where it looked as though he was going to let him through and then just turned right back across. And that time, there was contact, and obviously the lapped car was massively at fault. But yeah, current pace on track they're showing on the TV screen now. Bottas is the fastest. He's 0.4 quicker than Hamilton at the minute. Verstappen in between the two. Norris looking also pretty quick, lapping about 0.8 to a second off of the pace of the front runners, which you'd expect. So Lando Norris, I have to say, another superb drive from him, because that car is not the quickest midfield car this weekend, and he's up in 5th place and maintaining a 3-second gap to Charles Leclerc behind. So he's on for another driver of the day possibly here, is Lando Norris. As Perez still leading, still has not come into the pits, and he's only 4 and a bit seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who is rapidly catching him. And I'm assuming Perez will just stay out, really, until Hamilton actually catches him and then come into the pits for the final, say, 15 laps of this Grand Prix. And talking of driver of the day, guys, let me know in the chat for the after stream bit. Who do you think has been driver of the day so far? Let me know. I'd have to say Hamilton, and probably Hamilton, Norris, Ricciardo would probably be my top 3 at the minute. As seeing Max Verstappen here having a bit of a struggle, trying desperately to pull away from Valtteri Bottas, but Bottas slowly but surely gaining on Max Verstappen. As now lap 48, Hamilton does another new fastest lap, a 1:20.9. Looks most likely like he will be getting the fastest lap point, which of course for the championship would be critical. And once Perez pits, if Hamilton does win the race from Verstappen second, and Hamilton takes the fastest lap point with him, then Hamilton will lead the championship by just 9 points. So at the minute, and I do stress at the minute because we still have 18 laps to go, looking good for Lewis Hamilton. As Bottas, again, slowly but surely closing the gap. Hamilton really now starting to eat into Sergio Perez's gap over, and Perez being on these tyres in this race for 48 laps, but the actual age of the tyres is 53 laps. So surely Perez is going to be coming into the pits in the next couple of laps, because really losing a lot of time now. As comes through turn 14. Let's see if he comes into the pits this time, as Hamilton now gaining a second a lap on Sergio Perez. Does Perez pit? No, he does not, as I think Ricciardo has just passed Pierre Gasly for 9th place. So Gasly, Gasly down 2, although they're still very close on track, only a couple tenths of a second separating them, but I think Ricciardo has got that move done. Yes, he has. So Ricciardo up into 9th position, and he's about, as under investigation is Mazepin and Perez. I'm sure Mazepin will get a penalty for that. Ricciardo now about 4 seconds behind Carlos Sainz, and here is a replay. Round the outside at turn 5, Gasly goes down the inside, but I think ultimately just runs himself out of road, and Ricciardo switch back through the exit and gets the move done. But Nib, with how poor Sainz's pace is, you'd fancy Ricciardo for 8th place here, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and it looks like these hard tyres have been really, really good. Ocon's pace has been really strong. all race, as now Fernando Alonso is looking to make the move on Pierre Gasly, and that's pretty easy one, even before turn 1. But yeah, just for reference, Chaz Mazepin was shown blue flags at 5 marshal posts, so yeah, he's going to get a penalty.
Yeah, without doubt. As Hamilton just said something on team radio, but I missed it quickly as I was updating the order. But
the cars are rear limited with these tyres.
Right, okay. As
that's what he said.
He's now within 2 seconds of Sergio Perez. Bottas about 1.8 seconds behind Max Verstappen as we enter the final, what is soon to be 15 laps of this Grand Prix. And Perez surely's got a pit because he will probably start to lose time if he, battles Hamilton in any way. And maybe Red Bull might use him as a block, but I don't honestly think Hamilton is going to have any trouble passing Sergio Perez down the straight, especially with the car he has, the driver he is, of course, and obviously the tyres he has in comparison to Checo Perez. As Alonso now has DRS and Daniel Ricciardo, and good to see. I mean, he's still quite a bit behind Ocon, but it's good to see Alonso. This is his first properly, say, forward-moving Grand Prix he's had so far. Bahrain, he had a good qualifying, but just lost loads of positions. As Red Bull tell Perez that they're extending. As Hamilton here passing Perez, caught him very quickly. I don't know if Perez made a mistake there, but I seemed to be very caught very quickly there. I don't know if Perez has a problem because he lost a lot of time to Lewis Hamilton there. We'll have to see. And yeah, I think Perez has got to pit, surely, because he's losing so much time. As we've only got 15 laps to go. And they've tried to use Perez as a donkey for Verstappen, but it's not quite worked out. But yeah, it's good to see Alonso having the first forward-moving Grand Prix of the season that he's had, because the first couple races was really not really in a good position at all. As Perez, losing 2 or 3 seconds a lap now, so he's got to pit. As Ricciardo here, thinks he's going to be under threat from Fernando Alonso down to turn 1. Ricciardo defends the inside. Alonso will go round the outside. What a move by Fernando Alonso. And he's up to 9th place. Got to give credit to him because Ricciardo actually has fresher tyres and you'd think is in a faster car, but not the case there. Alonso up to 9th place as Perez is now going to pit for Red Bull, thankfully, as keeping him out any longer is not a good decision.
Sorry, when Hamilton overtook Perez, he come on team radio and said blue flags. He didn't actually realise that it was for position.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm being serious.
Oh dear. That's yeah. That's bad. He now comes out in 4th place as Mazepin gets a 5-second time penalty. And Perez, at least he'll be able to go for a fastest lap point now, but he's nowhere near anyone. He's 38 seconds ahead of Norris in 5th place and 20 seconds behind Bottas, who is in 3rd. And Bottas now 1.2 seconds behind Max Verstappen. So don't go anywhere, guys, because I think we are in for a fight for 2nd place because Bottas slowly but surely gaining on Verstappen, and Verstappen definitely struggling a bit compared to the Mercedes at the minute. And really for the whole Grand Prix, the Mercedes has been the faster car. And, well, I don't know what's wrong with Ricciardo because he's now dropped over a second behind Alonso. Now Gasly's right behind him. So Ricciardo has seemingly just lost all forward momentum with his race after getting past Gasly. And, yeah, Bottas very close now as we're now on lap 53. He's getting very close now to the back of Verstappen, and Verstappen has got to hold on to 2nd. He's not going to win Verstappen. Hamilton's been too good today and really this weekend. So Verstappen just got to make sure he gets this 2nd position. And if Bottas does have a go, got to make sure he doesn't make any contact because that's not what he wants. as just looking down the field. So yeah, Gasly within a second of Ricciardo. Vettel sadly 4.5 seconds away from Gasly, so it looks as though Sebastian Vettel just not going to get a point today. I think the Aston Martin's just not quick enough, we have to be honest there. The Ferrari, the McLaren and the Alpine, probably the AlphaTauri at least with Gasly, looking quicker as... Now, yeah, Gasly, DRS on Ricciardo, not close enough though. Gasly is on the medium, which is should be the faster compound, but Ricciardo did pit a lot later, so you'd expect Ricciardo to still be pulling away from Gasly, but yeah, Ricciardo looks nowhere near as good as he did a few laps ago. So worrying there for Ricciardo. Hopefully, for the final 12 laps, he can hold on to that points-paying position, because still, P16 to P10 is still a good drive, without doubt. So let's hope he can hang on there.
I just don't know what would have happened for this to happen, because he's just lost so much time. Has his tyres dropped out of the window? I mean, that's very probable. So yeah, it's quite remarkable to see Ricciardo struggling that much.
It is.
Especially on such fresh, hard tyre.
Exactly. And again, his compound is 1 lap fresher than Alonso, and Alonso looks way quicker right now. Alonso starting to gain on his compatriot, Carlos Sainz, and if Alonso can get past, then what a finish that would be for the Alpine team, of 10 points being scored for the Constructors' Championship. Gasly still within DRS of Ricciardo, but not close enough to actually go for an overtake. And unless Ricciardo really struggles even more, I think he will struggle Gasly to get past. And let's remember, Gasly on the medium, which will probably go off before Ricciardo's tyre does. As Bottas is having problems now. He was 1.2 seconds behind, and he's now 3 seconds behind. And continues to lose time. I don't know if he's in traffic or he's got a problem. Yeah, he must have a problem, Bottas. Look at the amount of time he's losing. He's losing many tenths of a second. Now 4 seconds behind. Now 4.3. Yeah, Bottas has a problem. Or maybe he's locked up and gone wide somewhere. He's had traffic, but he's lost a lot of time. And continues to lose time. Now 4.5 seconds behind. Losing power, says Valtteri Bottas. And that's a clear sign, because he's now 5 seconds behind. And oh dear for Valtteri Bottas. A podium would have been a good result for him. And he's now under serious threat, as he's losing power with about 10 laps to go. As Alonso, I think that's Alonso, getting past there. And here's a replay of Yuki Tsunoda locking up into turn 3, losing the rear end a bit. And what an awful Grand Prix he's had. And he's just not had a good season, has he? He just really cannot. And Bottas lapped Tsunoda. And then, yeah, Bottas seemingly doesn't have... I mean, his pace is a bit better now, but he did lose a bit of power. Without doubt, he's now 5 seconds behind Verstappen and continues to lose time. And Perez is gaining. I'm not sure at this rate that Perez will gain enough time.
It seems the issue has been sorted.
Right. Yeah, it looks as though it has.
Okay, so Paul, sorry, Chaz. Paul Drester's just saying there was a sensor issue with the engine temperature, so that was the issue.
Right. So thankfully for Bottas, that disaster has been averted, and I think now he'll just be hoping to get to the end and get in 3rd position, as now he is starting to pull back away. Sergio Perez behind as the fight continues. And what's this? This is Giovinazzi versus Vettel for 12th place. Giovinazzi forces Vettel to defend to the inside, and Giovinazzi just goes right around the outside. And how many times have we seen that today from basically every overtake? As Giovinazzi up into 12th position. That's a decent result for Giovinazzi, considering his race pace isn't known to be amazing, and he's ended up finishing, basically, he's going to finish where he started the Grand Prix. Hopefully, though, the team don't blame him for that contact with Raikkonen, because it definitely was not his fault. Clearly, Kimi Raikkonen's fault from earlier on. And now on lap 57 out of 66, so just less than 10 laps to go. As look at Alonso now, within a second of Sainz. Alonso turning back the years. He's now showing some proper pace in the Alpine, and he's now right on the tail of his compatriot for 8th place. And again, if he was to get past and Alpine were to get 7th and 8th, what a great result that would be for their season. As Mick Schumacher desperately trying to pass Nicholas Latifi for 17th place, and Alonso still behind. But what pace this is from Fernando Alonso, as Vettel still within, as Leclerc. That Leclerc? No, that's Sainz. I thought it was Leclerc then. I was just going to say Vettel is still within a second of Giovinazzi. He's only 6 or 7 tenths of a second off. So that battle for 12th place is not over yet. As Hamilton, 5.2 seconds clear on now lap 58 out of 66. And Bottas a further 5 seconds behind, so 10 seconds covering the top 3. And then Perez about a pit stop behind Bottas. Norris, 11.5 seconds behind Perez. And then Leclerc, 3.5 seconds behind Norris. And then Ocon in P7, about 7 seconds behind Leclerc. And then Sainz and Alonso separated by just half a second for 8th and 9th. And Carlos Sainz has really had a poor second half of the Grand Prix, struggling on his tyres. And looks as though he is going to fall to Alonso. And yeah, Alonso's got a great run out of turn 15. He's quite close. And Alonso gets the slipstream. Sainz is going to have to defend. Sainz does defend to the inside, but Alonso will get the move done. Great move by Alonso. And he's up to 8th place. And Carlos Sainz, I think at this point, will just be hoping he can get to the end and actually finish in the points, because his pace is nowhere at the minute. As we're now seeing Mick Schumacher and Nicholas Latifi fighting desperately for position. And Mick Schumacher on the outside. No, Latifi holds it for 17th place. But Alonso up to 8th. Great for him. Good to see, though, Mick Schumacher fighting another car. Because after the way Haas started the season, you wouldn't think that would really happen this season too much. But nice to see him doing that, and I actually think he's doing a pretty good job in that car, as he's now letting through the Alpine of Fernando Alonso, and he will in a minute let through, I think, the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, and he does. So, yeah, but the battle will, I'm sure, resume in a minute. And yeah, Ricciardo really gaining a lot. Where has Sainz's pace gone? I don't really know. Can you think of a reason, Nib? Because he's so slow. In that midfield pack, he's one of the slowest in there.
Well, I'm not really too sure, Chaz. I assume that on that lap, the traffic did make him lose a little bit of time. But yeah, just seems like his pace has been really poor. I mean, with the tyres around this track, it's certainly not tyre wear. Especially at the moment, it will just be because of the tyre window. The tyre window, I think, has affected a lot of people's pace today.
Yeah, seemingly with Ricciardo it has, even though Ricciardo is starting to respond now. Valtteri Bottas just said again on team radio, feels like he's slow on the straight, so he obviously feels like he still has a problem. If he continues at this pace, though, he will still get 3rd place, so he shouldn't be under threat from anyone behind him, to be honest. As Lance Stroll, interestingly, has overtook Sebastian Vettel, and now Stroll at 1.3 to 1.4 seconds behind Giovinazzi for 12th. None of them, though, anywhere near getting a point here. As Giovinazzi is about 7 seconds away from a point on circuit at the minute. And is a replay, and Vettel basically letting him through. Because Stroll pitted, you have to remember, a lot later than Sebastian Vettel, so there's nothing Vettel can really do against his teammate there. We're now on lap 61, and will soon be the end of the race coming very soon. Not been that great of a race, I have to say. The battles between Hamilton, Verstappen, and Bottas in the first 15 laps I thought were very good, but got to say since then it's been a very mediocre Grand Prix. What do you think, Nib?
Yeah, it's not been too great of a race, has it? It's not. I'd probably put it maybe a 4.5, 5.
Yeah.
If we're lucky. I think. Sorry, I was just waiting to hear what Bottas was saying. They're thinking about potentially pitting Bottas to get the fastest lap. That's what they were telling him over the radio, because they do have the gap at the moment to Perez. But I mean, if they make a mistake in the pit stop, then they would lose it. So no, it'd be a bit risky. So yeah, but it hasn't been the greatest race. We've seen a lot of cars separated by 2 seconds or so, especially through the middle of the part of the race. I feel like we would have had a bit more of a better race if Verstappen was able to get past Bottas a little bit earlier than what he did. Obviously, well, I mean, he got him just at the end of the pit stops. But yeah, I mean, there hasn't been much battling apart from really the opening laps.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's been about a 5 out of 10, just a bang average Grand Prix. The only reason I'm giving it a 5 is because of the opening 15 laps and the battle between the front three. Since then, it's just been meh at best, I'm afraid. But still, there's plenty of laps, or not plenty of laps, there's only 5 laps, or 4 and a bit laps to go. I'm just looking for any signs of hope of any battles. I mean, Ricciardo is just over a second behind Carlos Sainz, so could get something there. Leclerc is starting to catch Lando Norris a bit. We'll keep our eyes on that, but it looks as though the race is, in terms of the result, that it's going to finish the way it is on the screen right now, which at the minute is Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Perez, Norris, Leclerc, Ocon, Alonso, Sainz, Ricciardo. And then finishing the race, but not the points at the minute, Gasly, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Vettel, Tsunoda, Russell, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin, and of course retiring at the end of the second lap, or the beginning of the second lap rather, was Kimi Räikkönen in the Alfa Romeo. But yeah, basically, have to be honest, we're just waiting for the checkered flag. Hopefully something dramatic between now and then happens, as Mick Schumacher finally does get his way past Nicholas Latifi, so good on him for getting that move done. And that's the only move he'll get done, because George Russell is a further 20 seconds up the road from Mick Schumacher. But like I said earlier, good to see that Mick is having a fight and isn't giving up, despite being in a car that is very, very poor, you have to say. And Latifi, the reason he got past was because Latifi had a massive inside front lockup, and Latifi went too wide off the circuit there. As Verstappen actually started to gain quite a bit on Hamilton. Gap's down to 4 seconds from 5 seconds, but I'm sure Hamilton has it under control. As here we go, so Ricciardo within a second of Carlos Sainz. Does he have DRS? Yes, he does. Will he get the move done? I don't think he will, so I don't think he's close enough. Even though the McLaren is much faster in a straight line, he's not that much quicker in a straight line. As Giovinazzi there just lapping Latifi, as Bottas is coming into the pits for the fastest lap point. So, yeah. And he comes into the pits now, and yeah, hopefully he doesn't have a pit stop problem. And he will go onto the soft compound tyre. Comes out, and yeah, should be fine to come out in third place, get the fastest lap, and then come home instead of 15 points with 16 to take the fastest lap away from Sergio Perez. As he comes out of the pits now with the track all to his own, basically. And a good pit stop there from Mercedes as well of 2.7 seconds. As Leclerc continues to gain on Norris, he's only 2.5 seconds behind, but I think Norris will hold on. I think the reason Leclerc is, as Bottas says, wind is picking up. I think the reason Leclerc's gaining is because he does have quite a bit fresher tyres. But I think it's too late for Leclerc to get a move done here, I'm afraid. As we need to be looking really at Sainz versus Ricciardo for... And here we go. Just as soon as I say that, surely Ricciardo getting the move done. And Carlos Sainz's horrible second stint continues. And Ricciardo up into 9th position. So, good result for Ricciardo. And Max Verstappen pitting now in the Red Bull on the penultimate lap. And I'm assuming he is going to go for the fastest lap as well. And comes out the pits. 1.9 second pit stop. How are they so good at that? They do it so regularly. They're so good at getting those 1.9 or 1.8 second pit stops in. It's quite frankly ridiculous.
They're the best.
Yeah, they are without doubt the best. But he will now go for the fastest lap point as we're now on. I'll just quickly update the lap counter. The penultimate lap. Quickly, Nib, who would you go for your driver of the day as?
Jeez. I think you'd probably have to say Lewis Hamilton. The move on Bottas was brilliant. Obviously, getting past Verstappen was brilliant. So yeah, I think you'd have to give it to Hamilton.
Yeah, he has been. I mean, of course, lost position of Verstappen on the safety car restarts. We're now on the final lap of the Grand Prix. You've got to say, Lewis Hamilton has been yet again class of the field. And as I said, when he overtook Verstappen around the outside and Bottas, there's a reason he's a 7-time world champion. There's a reason why I think at least he's the greatest of all time. And this Grand Prix today has proven that. Gasly now passed Sainz. So Sainz is out of the points. What's happened to Sainz? We'll have to investigate after the race because his pace has been, quite frankly, pathetic as Bottas does the fastest lap for now, a 19.8. But Sainz outside of the points and Gasly will nick a point for AlphaTauri. But Lewis Hamilton coming to the end of the final lap, and like I said, there's a reason he's a 7-time world champion. There's a reason I think he's the greatest of all time, and it's because of a race like today where when he has to get a move done, when the critical moments come up that he has to be at his best, he always is. And that's why it's so hard to beat Lewis Hamilton. And if Max Verstappen and Red Bull are going to beat him this season, then they are going to have to be, quite frankly, flawless in their performance this season as Lewis Hamilton comes through turn 15. And for the second year in a row, Lewis Hamilton wins the 2021 Portuguese Grand Prix in Portimao, and it surely should be Max Verstappen in second place. We'll see if Max Verstappen can get the fastest lap point in just a moment, as Verstappen just coming through turn 14 now, and he comes through turn 15, and Max Verstappen comes up to the line. And yep, does get the fastest lap point. So Verstappen comes through over an extra point, which will help for his championship later on. Bottas finishes in 3rd. Sergio Perez finishes in 4th. And then it will be Lando Norris finishing 5th. Charles Leclerc 6th. Esteban Ocon in 7th. Alonso 8th. Ricciardo 9th. Gasly 10th. And then finishing outside the points, but finishing the race, Sainz, unfortunately for him. And then Giovinazzi, Stroll, Vettel. As you know, Vettel has passed Stroll on the final lap. I'll update that in a minute. So it's actually Vettel 13th, Stroll 14th, then Tsunoda 15th, and then Russell 16th, Schumacher 17th, Latifi 18th, Mazepin 19th, and then your only retirement of the Grand Prix has been Kimi Raikkonen. And I'll just put that on screen so you guys know that the race is indeed over. And yeah, not a great race, but there you go. 3rd Grand Prix of the season completed. And Lewis Hamilton, after being not too great at Imola in the Grand Prix, where he really did make a critical mistake, which is very rare for him. Bounced back very well this weekend with a superb victory. Let me just update. So Vettel ahead of Stroll. But guys, let me know in the chat right now, who is your driver of the day? Let me know in the chat, and I'll read out some if I can. Astro Steven says Daniel Ricciardo. El Houdini says Ricciardo. Got an Alonso one there. Count Blast says Lewis. Who else have we got? But yeah, put your fastest laps. Put your driver of the days down there, please. And yeah, not too great of a race, I have to say, on reflection. Let me just see if I look up. Ricciardo gained 9 positions, absolutely true. And that's why he didn't gain 9 positions. He gained, was it 7 or 8? So I don't think he gained that many. But yeah, great drive by him without doubt. Beauty Reality says Hamilton. Penguin Ed says Norris. Andre Alexander says Lewis. Got loads of ones for Lewis Hamilton. Robert says Alonso. Rooksfoot, of course, our very loyal and very good moderator, says Lando Norris. Top Striker says Lewis. And it looks as though it's going to go in the chat to Lewis Hamilton. But I think, to be honest, considering the race we had, I think it's about time we come to the end of the stream. Don't go away, though, because I need to update you guys on a couple of things. But I will say, very much thank you to you guys for what has been really a great stream in terms of viewership. We have today, I'll have to check the exact numbers, but we have today hit our highest ever live viewership. I think earlier it was almost 4,000 people watching live right before the race started. So thank you very much for that, guys. Also, thank you very much for the donations. And we are very close to 10,000 subscribers. I think we're just over 100 away. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to get us to 10k. And also for more content like this, because again, we'll be doing a race watch along and qualifying watch along for every single Grand Prix remaining in 2021. And of course, we'll be doing it again in a week's time for the Spanish Grand Prix in Catalonia. Nib, thank you so much for coming on, mate, and commentating on this meh Grand Prix.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. And very importantly, whilst you're doing all that, whilst you're just wrapping things up, Max Verstappen's time has been deleted for track extending at turn 14.
Oh,
so
dear.
Valtteri Bottas has got the fastest lap point. An extra bit of a sting in the tail for not the greatest day in the world for Max Verstappen.
Not the greatest weekend either, but yeah, thanks for letting us know that. And again, thanks for coming on today. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or go to my channel page and do it there. As well, don't forget to smash the like button and hit the notifications bell for more content like this. As well, don't forget to share this video everywhere. Share this channel everywhere if you can. Comment down below what you thought of the race. Also, don't forget to join my Discord server. Great place for notifications for my videos and streams. And also, very frequent server when it comes to in terms of F1 debate or motorsport debate. We have nearly, and we're getting very close to 500 people in that server. So it'd be great to have you there, have you along with us. So make sure to join that Discord server. Link below in the description. But guys, thank you very much for today and the great numbers we had on stream. And just, yeah, thank you very much for that. And yeah, until the race review tomorrow night, which I'll be doing, just want to remind you that, guys, I will be doing a race review tomorrow night at 7 p.m. UK time, so make sure to come to that as we'll review everything that happened in this Grand Prix and go through why the result ended up the way it did for all the drivers. So until then, guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.